Okay, today we're going to talk about compound inequalities. And all a compound inequality is a regular inequality that has more than one part. So it means literally putting two different inequalities together. In most cases, that's going to be two inequalities, and that's what we're going to be doing in class. So this is putting two inequalities together, and we call that compound inequalities. And there's two different ways we can do it. We can either use the word and or the word or. The word and implies that both must be true at the same time. The word or implies that either one or the other. Thus the or part of it. Okay, so if both must be true, we'll use and. If either one could be true, then it's going to be an or. And for inequalities, with or, we literally write the word or in the middle. Now, you can write the word and for compound inequalities but instead what we're going to use is symbols. And we're going to use the less than symbol, and we use a pair of them. So let's say that x is between, and that's generally and is going to be between two different things. So let's say it's between 1 and 3. These are the symbols we use. It's always a less than, and that means and. So anytime you see a double inequality symbol in one sentence, it'll be a less than. The other thing to notice is that you don't see the or equals to. That's okay, you can. So this would be another way to write a compound inequality. This is read that 1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 3. The other way to read this is that our numbers x is between 1 and 3. Okay? And generally this is the way we interpret it, that x is between 1 and 3. Always, always, always less than symbols. You may never use a greater than symbol here. Smallest number will be on the left, greatest number on the right, just like on a number line. So it's 1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3, or 1 less than x less than or equal less than 3. And you could even combine them and say that 1 is less than x and less than or equal to 3. This implies that our number x is bigger than 1, but it could be up to and including the number 3. So you can intermix your symbols, but always less than or equal symbols. All right, that being said, let's take a look at the inequality that we have up at the top and try to write a sentence. So the first thing is I have to identify my two inequalities. It says, to ride a particular ride at the amusement park, George must be at least 42 inches tall, but not more than 60. So I'm going to use the variable x. And this is going to represent his height. Okay? Don't forget to be identifying your variables. So I'm going to use x to represent height. And it says that George must be at least. So at least means that's a minimum. It can be 42, but it cannot be anything less than 42. So that is saying that x is greater than or equal to 42. Because this is our minimum, and at least means it's either going to be that or bigger. That's what that word at least means. But the other one says that x has to be smaller than 60, and let's see if it could be equal to. It says, but not more than 60. So 60 is not more than 60, so it could be equal to. 61 is more than 60, so it cannot be 60, but 59 is not more than 60, so x could be 59. So it's going to be less than or equal to because of this phrase, not more than. Okay, and sometimes just using an example is the best way to figure out whether or not it should be an or equals to or not. So if it's an or equals to, like in this case 60 is not more than 60, then we put the little line underneath it. If it's not, then no line underneath it, just the less than symbol. Okay, so we're going to put these together. We know that x has to be greater than or equal to 42, and at the same time, x has to be less than or equal to 60. So we're going to write a compound inequality with removing this word and. So we put the smallest number on the left. We put the biggest number on the right. We put our variable in the middle. In this case, we're using x. And here we had a less than or equal to, written as a greater than, but we're going to flip it around. So we could also have written this as 40 is less than or equal to x. So we'll use the less than or equal here. And here we already have the less than or equal. So this is our compound inequality. So it says our x is between 42 and 60, and it could be either 42 or 60. So that's how we write a compound inequality for and I think you probably want to see an example for or, so let's look at another example. This one will be an or, because I designed it that way. But let's see, it says to be eligible for a discounted ticket, you must either be a minor or a senior citizen age 65 years or older. So again, we're going to start with our variable. I'm going to pick x. You can pick any letter you want with the restrictions we've talked about before. And this is going to represent age, how old we are. Okay, so the first one says you must either be a minor. Well, a minor means that you have to be less than 18 years old, because at 18 you're an adult. You could be 17 and 12 months, but you cannot be 18. That's why we're not going to use the equal symbol here, because you cannot be 18 to be a minor. Also, I'm not going to say that x is less than or equal to 17, because you can be older than 17 and still be a minor. You can be up to 17 and 12 and 11 months and 31 days, whatever that last day happens to be. Okay, so we're not going to use this. We're going to use x is less than or equal to less than 18. Now, for a senior citizen, we want to see that x is greater than or equal to 65, because it says or older. So you could be 65 and be a senior citizen, or you can be anything over 65. Okay. Now, you can't at the same time be less than 18 and also greater than 65. So this is clearly an or situation. It's going to be one or the other. You cannot possibly be both. So we're going to just write it with the or. So you write x is less than or 18, or x is greater than or equal to 65. And you circle it, because that's the best you can do for writing an a compound inequality for an or statement. Okay, so quick review. For an or, we're going to write the word or, and we're going to have two inequalities that are simple inequalities that are just simply written out. And for an and, we're going to actually write a compound inequality with symbols. And it's always going to be a less than or equal symbol in our compound inequality. Variable almost always goes in the center, and we have a too small number and a too big number on the two ends, small being on the left, big being on the right. If you have questions, please make sure you ask.